Hello, everybody, and welcome to Wine and Winchesters. We are back. I'm Emmy Mears. I'm here with Laura Hughes. Summer is going to try to join us because technology just hates us lately. So, yeah, hopefully my end of technology will not drop us on our butts again tonight, and we will be able to get through the next 45 minutes or so without any significant interruptions. Though there might be a very hungry tiny cat jumping all over me because she, for some reason, thinks it's her dinner time and it's 2 hours before. Anyway, so yeah, we're going to be discussing 2 different episodes tonight. The episode from last week, Alex, Annie, Alexis, Anne, and last night's Bloodlines. So I'm sure we'll both have a lot to say about both of those things. So let's start with last week's. And yeah, Laura, do you want to kick us off?
Yes, yay, Jody Mills. She's awesome. Kicks butt. Man, I wish the spinoff was about her because she's like the most well-adjusted character on Supernatural. She's like figured it out so much faster than everybody else. It's just like, yeah, the lady to do it.
Yeah, she's awesome. I just love Kim Rhodes a lot, and I was so excited that she was coming back, and then that episode just nailed everything. It was really from head to toe, a great episode. And what was that? 3 female characters? What? Oh my gosh. So, and complex ones. Even the mom, like Mama Vamp, was, she had a lot of complexity to her, and I really respected that. Like, she...
For someone who only had 10 minutes of screen time, you know, you really understood her as a character.
Yeah, absolutely. You can see her motivations and the warring with her own nature, which was really a cool thing to see. I really liked that. And we'll, I'm sure, go into this later, but that's what I felt kind of lacking on Bloodlines, even though on paper it was there with I keep wanting to say David Lannister. As he wasn't, his last name wasn't Lannister, was it? What was it?
No, it was... I only watched the episode once because I fell asleep last night and forgot to watch it because I'm a terrible human being. But I watched it this morning and I cannot remember.
I'll have to look it up. But anyway, back to Alex Annie. But I liked so much of that episode. I loved seeing Jody again, and also her just getting to really save the day. Just in
every way. You know, she stopped.
She was absolutely the hero of that episode. She got to fill a Winchester role on that episode. She got to be the person who, she gets tortured a little bit and you know, gets captured, but also gets herself out of it and gets someone else out of it, and you know, just head to toe hero. Absolutely fantastic, and there was so much to love about that episode, and not the least of which being that it passed the Bechdel test.
Yes.
Have we had an episode pass the Bechdel test since the Slumber Party episode?
I don't know. No, because it seems like every woman who's been on the show for even like 5 minutes who's been kind of awesome has been dead by the end of the episode. So
actually, there was that little demon buddy of Crowley's who worked for the government who talked to Abaddon for a minute.
Yeah, and then she got killed because we're talking to Abaddon.
But it did pass the Bechdel test, technically.
Yeah.
They were 2 women talking to each other about something other than a man, because they were even not talking about Crowley. They were just talking about her. So, but yeah, I was really, and not only was it just a conversation, but they had a real conversation. They had a conversation with real emotion, real complexity, real depth about real things, loss and grief, and coping with your own past and things that you've done and choices that you've made and how it's affected everything else. And that was something that was just incredibly special. So,
lost everything else in your life, but you still have yourself.
And the acting in it was top notch. Man, Kim Rhodes, I cannot give her enough props on everything she did in that episode. She was, you could see everything from her grief to her attempts to be stoic to her, just everything going on underneath her expressions. And that was I thought was so masterful to watch her was just you could see her thinking.
Yeah, that scene where they tell her about, oh, so yeah, you've heard of vampire blood, or dead man's blood, right? And just the look on her face as she walks out, she's like, great, another thing I need, didn't need to know, but here I am needing to know it. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
love that
about the scene where they're kind of where Dean and Sam are sort of coming down on her about how she's going to deal with Alex, and you can just see on her face just like, no, I'm going to do what I want. Like, you can talk all you want, but I know what's right to do, and I'm going to do it.
And she just climbs in the car and it's like, you're not going without me. That's it.
Yeah, absolutely. I love how capable she is. I really love how just competent a person Jody Mills is. She just is absolutely 100% confident in her own abilities. She knows how to do what she needs to do. She doesn't freak out. She doesn't balk at things. She just gets it done. And that's such a great and refreshing thing to see from a female character on the show. And I actually felt that same thing from Alex, or Annie, I don't know what we're calling her. But I felt that same sort of competence from her. Like, even though her family even talked about her as if she were flighty and unsure of what she was doing, she knew herself.
Yeah.
And that was really evident. And I think that was also something that made that such a powerful episode and such a powerful closing scene between her and Jody, is that you saw that she really knew herself. And that is something that you don't get to really see from women on TV in general very often. Like, you don't get to see that kind of self-awareness, especially in a young woman. So,
yeah, a young woman who had spent basically her entire teenage life living with vampires, doing what she was told to do, and then she turns around and makes the decision that, no, this isn't the life she wants, and she wants a shot at least at a real life. I mean, she'd already run away at the beginning of the episode, but she had no idea how to do that on her own. So her and Jody together were able to say, look, we're both in the same sort of situation where we've lost everything and we need to find ourselves instead of finding just something else to hold on to. We just, because Jody didn't say, well, you can stay with me. She said, that offer is there if you want it,
Yeah, like, I'll be whatever you have to be. I thought that was a really, really powerful and poignant thing for her to say, is that she wasn't going to push herself on Alex either, and I really also liked that. She gave Alex that choice and understood that Alex was going to exercise her own agency regardless of what she said, so she gave her options and said, whatever you need from me, I will give.
Right. It wasn't being blackmailed into the situation like Mama Vamp was trying to do to her. It was, it was deceiving her and twisting her into this the lost Alex that she lost from her life, her daughter or whatever Alex was to her, who she lost. Jody's not trying to manipulate Alex into being any particular thing except herself. So yeah, that's awesome. The whole idea of that is just like.
Yeah, that's a high concept idea right there. And also, I was just thinking of, there is kind of another layer to it as well, that you have, even though both of them have, lost people, and you could kind of you could understand how Jody might try to fill that hole in her own life with Alex. You also see the reflection of Alex in Jody, in the sense that she is making choices for herself. And I had something more profound to say than that, and I'm trying to track it down. It's almost like, oh man, I've got my fingers just like almost on it, and I'm trying to catch it. Oh, where is it? It's eluding me.
Will it hurt if I talk?
I don't think so. Go for it.
Okay.
You gotta say.
No, it's like Jody lost her family in sort of the same way that Alex did, like traumatically all at once. Like unforeseen, you know, and everything that Alex had ever known was just gone in a day. Just same thing that happened to Jodie in season 5, and it's just like, well, you know, at first Jodie was trying to grab onto things in previous episodes that we've seen in the past few seasons, like she said, dating and religion, and she'd been, you know, she saw Alex when she first met her. She said, she kind of latched onto her as a child instead of trying to, you know, help her grow as a person. And she said Dean wasn't wrong about saying that, you know, she was going in for the wrong reasons, and because originally she was, but she realized that she was doing the same thing as the mama vampire was. She was trying to, you know, mold Alex into something she wasn't, in her mind anyway, and she let it go. So
yeah. In that realization, that self-awareness that we'd already talked about, that self-awareness allowed her to transcend past patterns, and that is, I think, the real triumph of that episode is both of them like being able and self-aware enough to transcend past patterns, to move on, to not propagate a cycle in their lives. And I kind of just that sense of openness at the end, that openness and possibility of not knowing what comes next, but being okay with finding out.
Right. Gosh, wouldn't we like that for the boys?
Oh man, yeah. So yeah, that was just overall just a really, really great episode, and I'm hoping we see more of Jodie Mills, because she is such a fantastic addition to the cast of that show, or to the characters on that show. It's just the dynamic she creates, and also that sense of competence that she has. She has a level of partnership with the boys that we haven't really seen since Bobby.
Yeah.
They understand each other and they respect each other, and that's understanding and respect is something that's rare.
Yeah.
In that.
Yeah.
So
hunters and people in that life, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So I think that there was so much good, and I have to big hats off to Robert Behrens for writing that episode, because I was so like, I was in tears after that episode. I was so grateful to see the complexity there, and also, you know, on the show where we so seldom see female characters developed really much at all, and to see not one but two of them in the same episode, that was an episode about women. That was an episode about women. And legitimately an episode that was willing to explore that women have other things going on in their heads and their hearts than like a lot of the stereotypical ideas. That just these deeper things of grief and loss and coping and change and moving on and knowing yourself, and those were human things. And I think that's what touched me so much, is that it was an episode about women that was centered on the humanity of women, and that is one thing that's just really, really rare to see. And it was disappointing to me in Bloodlines to see that how far it backslid in the first 5 minutes. I was like, oh, this lovely little couple, I'm like, one or both of them is totally going to die, and it's probably going to be the girl, and it was.
Yeah. Well, it's as far as Bloodlines goes, it looks like a lot of the same tropes were used from the beginning of Supernatural. Girlfriend's dead, mother's dead, you know, father's missing, you know, all this stuff.
I hoped for so much more than that, and it, you know, it worked in the pilot of Supernatural because it was done with so much pathos, and it worked also because it was at the time fresh.
Right.
And even though, like, yeah, you know, dead mom, dead girlfriend was kind of tropey even then, the way they did it actually did fit into how they developed things, and they allowed that to have fallout throughout and that's a big theme for me. Is a big theme for me this week, is allowing fallout from traumatic things. And I just get the same level of pathos from Bloodlines as I did from the pilot, or, you know, one of the things that I've been discussing just ad nauseum this week is Game of Thrones. And big spoiler, honking spoiler warning, cover your ears until I put my hands down if you're watching and haven't seen the last 2 episodes. So I'll keep my hands up while I'm talking spoilers. Wait, have you seen it, or do you care?
I don't care.
Okay. So, not this week, but last week's episode, there was a rape scene where Jaime Lannister raped his sister, and they've had a previous sexual relationship. In the books, this scene is entirely and explicitly consensual. Explicitly. She says flat out, yes, do me right now. Like, and in the show, they made it really awful and creepy and totally rape. She was saying no throughout, she was struggling throughout, and it was really awful and triggery to watch. Just really, really bad. And I talked to a friend about it for like an hour, and one of the things I said was like, this is what I fear is going to happen, and this is what I'm pretty sure is going to happen. They're never going to talk about it again. It's going to just be glossed over, and it was only for shock value, and that was it. Yeah, this week's episode, the 2 characters in which, like, where this happened, that's exactly what they did. They were in the same room together. Not a hint that he had raped her the last episode. Not a hint. Nothing. Just, it was reversion to the entire, like, their prior dynamics, 100%. There was no clue that would say, like, in the last episode, he raped her. And it was really, really awful. And I have, you know, the fact is that they did exactly what I was expecting them to, and that it just made me, you know, my esteem plummet. So, end of spoilers. But the basic idea and the basic gist is that Fallout is what makes things okay. Veronica Mars deals with rape pretty much throughout the entire series. Its whole 3 seasons, like, touch on it. And it has fallout. They allow it to have fallout. They allow traumatic incidents to resurface episodes later, sometimes throughout in little ways. It pops up. And you see it. You see things that are traumatic having ripple effects throughout the lives of all of the characters. And it touches all of the characters just like a real-life traumatic event would, whether it's a bus full of kids going over a cliff and someone who is supposed to be on that bus having guilt about it and it just coming up over and over again, or in the case of rape, that person getting triggered, it affecting relationships, it affecting how she goes through the world and her emotions later, and it affects her friends, and it affects the people, just, you know, even people not really connected with her in some ways. So that's the thing that worked so well in season 1 of Supernatural with the pilot and the death of their mother and the death of Jess. And right. They allowed it to have fallout. You saw Sam grieving and having a lot of pain and a lot of he got triggered.
To the point where he was like hallucinating her, you know, and seeing her where she wasn't, and nightmares, and, you know, not sleeping, and having trouble relating to women he met through work, you know, or work.
Yeah, that makes it sound so mundane, but it's true.
You know, you meet a woman and he wouldn't even be able to, like, commit to a friendly social relationship because there was still that hurt, you know, so that loss.
Grieving. We actually got to see him grieve, and
it's not something just brush aside.
Yeah, and I felt like it just in Bloodlines it just felt really plot devicey, and while they might have that level of I mean, there were a couple of flashbacks in episode to it, but it kind of it didn't work for me on a lot of levels. I think it felt forced, and it felt I just, you know, I also was upset by the fact that here we get this lovely couple who are people of color. And the first thing I thought is like, oh, they're going to kill him because, you know, they always do. You know, and it's just like, not they being the writers of Supernatural, but they in general being writers of TV shows, period. Like, it just, it frustrated me to see this really, like, I hoped that they would twist the trope. I hoped that it would be her, honestly, that ended up being one of the protagonists of the show, and that, you know, they would surprise us by doing something like that. Like, that's really, if they had made that one change, had it been her who ended up being the protagonist, whether he died or not, like, that could have been something really different and interesting, but they didn't.
Yeah, yeah. But, you know, there's only so much you can do in a backdoor pilot when you're sort of lumping off and still trying to include the main characters from the regular show and still trying to do all that. I think there are a lot of interesting characters. The shapeshifter, the main shapeshifter guy's sister, the one with the dark eye makeup and the slick suits and the slick back hair. Yeah. I think she has the potential to be a really manipulative, good, interesting female character. She seemed to have a lot more depth to her as a character, even though she's not she probably is going to end up being what we think of as an evil character, just by the way she is. But, you know, hopefully there's that, and hopefully we'll learn more and we'll see Ennis more in context and see him go through that grief through that series. But, I mean, there's only so much grief they can lump on a brand new character in a show that's already in existence. So I have not written it off yet.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I want to go through the same sort of show with a main female lead who refers to herself as bitch, even though that's technically apparently the werewolf term for, like, the lady of the pack.
Yeah. I had actually a pretty big issue with that. Like, I thought that on one level it kind of worked, but on another level, like, why not make that, like, they took, I don't know, they took the word bitch and took it to, like, a prison sense, you know? Like, instead of a powerful werewolf sense where a bitch could be like an empowering thing, like, oh, you're the bitch of this pack, like, you are, like, you're the bitch of this pack, like, you run this fucking pack. Sorry, I dropped our F-bomb for the night. But, like, that to me is what they could have done. That also would have been. I feel like as I was watching, there were, like, these paths that were kind of branching out, because as I was making predictions of what would happen in my head, like, I was watching sort of things branch out, and I was like, they could do this. This would be really interesting, and then they went the other way. That was expected and that's what kind of got me about it. Is, like, I had a really hard time liking it, and I found it even more of a letdown because I had just watched last week's episode. So it was like, I also think if I had watched last week's episode when it aired, I probably would have been a little more forgiving of Bloodlines. But then watching it right after such a well-wrought work of art that I felt last week's episode was.
Oh, one other thing we didn't touch on about last week's episode was Dean attacking the vampire. He's hiding out on the floor while they're basically draining Sam of all of his blood. I mean, usually that would be something that Dean would do his best to stop them from trying to do, to hurt Sam like that. But instead he just laid there and waited for his perfect moment and then sprung into, who knows how long he'd actually been conscious on the floor, sprung into action, and then he's overpowering supernatural creatures left and right. And you've got to think, God, is that a Mark of Cain thing? Is his whole attitude, you know, look at me, and he's like, as he's like turning the knife and behead, like making the guy look him right in the eyes as he kills him. It's like kind of freaky there, Dean, you know.
And the guy obeyed.
Yes.
He didn't have to. He was going to die anyway.
Yeah.
He did it to obey. That's how commanding Dean was in that moment. And I thought it was very interesting as well. Also, Dean is acting like soulless Sam.
Yes.
He's acting way more pragmatic and way less emotional than normal Dean.
Yeah, I mean, we've hardly gotten a smile out of him lately, or even a light-hearted comment. And even after he started untying Sam, Sam's like, hey, Dean, wait. And he's like, yeah, I know you wouldn't have done the same thing for me. And he's totally missed the point. You know, it's like he's already accepted that he's poisoned, that he's lost, that he's disposed of now. You know, it's just like
You're getting Dark Dean. Like, this is Dark Dean starting, and I am really liking what they're doing with him. And Jensen is just fantastic, man. He just keeps up in his game.
Yeah.
Like, it's amazing to see these actors develop their craft over years, especially when they have that much time to get to know their characters and really live in that skin for a long time. And you really get to see the benefit of a long-running TV show when it goes on this far, because you just get to see these actors live and breathe these characters and the nuance and complexity that it brings to their craft, really. I mean, they're making art on screen for us to watch, and that's really a treasure.
Yep. I mean, just, yeah, everything about that is just, when they're explaining to Jodie about, like, the vampires that take humans and just kind of hold on to them for a food source, and it's just, they're,
Yep.
Oh, well.
To love. I mean,
shut up now.
There was just a lot to love with that. I also loved Jodie's little comment, like, nest, huh? Like, guess that's not as warm and cozy as it sounds, eh?
That's like my favorite thing about her, man. She'll learn about a new monster. Like, every time she's in an episode and there's a new monster, and they'll mention something, and she'll be like, "Oh no, really? That's real too? Oh God, why?" And then she's just like, "Okay, moving on. Let's handle it." You know, like when they mentioned in the last episode she was in, they're like, "Oh yeah, the angels," and she's like, "Angels are real," and you're like, "Yeah." It's just like she's like, has her little one moment of, oh my God, no. And then she's like, okay, we'll handle it.
Another one.
Like, she takes just like one brief little moment to let it almost kill her, and then she comes right back, and that's my favorite thing about her, man. I love her.
Yeah, she's definitely resilient, and she just kind of bounces back from unsavory news, shall we say. But yeah, I love her a lot, and I'm so excited to see where she goes, where they take it from here with her, because she's just that character has so much potential, and I hope we get to keep seeing it explored. So that's, like, even in the first episode with her, we got to see that complexity and depth, and that's, I think, that's another reason why that was such a contrast to Bloodlines for me. And I hate that I was so disappointed by that episode, because I really wanted to like it. And I wanted to be like, oh, yeah, like, cool. But it really didn't do it for me. And in trying to articulate that, I think a lot of it was that was the contrast to that episode of Supernatural. And it's just like,
it was hard. Yeah.
We've seen them do really tremendous things in one episode. That I'm trying to remember the name of the episode with. It was that werewolf episode that was pretty one-offy. It was the one that was filmed by those college kids.
Oh, right. The one that was all from the girl's point of view. And they left. Oh, yeah.
The girl, the two guys. Yeah.
I got the window with all the episodes in it. Hang on.
Yeah, that episode for me was just a perfect example of what you can do with 40 minutes of screen. Like, you can make us care deeply about three characters we have never seen before.
Right.
By writing their interactions with each other and with unpredictable circumstances. And that was what Bloodlines, I think, could have been had they gone that way. But it got a little showy. It just didn't have the gravitas that I was expecting. I think they also introduced too many new characters.
Yeah, well, trying to make people understand that it's like this whole Chicago Mafia thing with monster families, the 5 monster families. Yeah. But I can't just write it off yet. I think that the female character, the one who is like the werewolf woman.
Yeah.
I can't remember her name. Violet.
Violet. Yeah.
Apparently their ship name is now Vivid for Violet and David. So I have to like it just for that.
Yeah, I do like.
But Violet is she has that potential. I mean, David might break her down. David wanted to go human. He wanted to play human, and he wanted her to come with him. So maybe there is salvation for her if she can find out. Maybe the two of them and Ennis together can work the system, and it can turn into like a sort of team free will of a little bit more diversity. And I don't know.
I almost feel like with her character, with what we saw, that one surprise of her breaking free and kind of saving the day, like that was a surprising moment for me in Bloodlines, and that was kind of, honestly, for me, that episode had like two redeeming factors. One, that they finally have a main character of color, and two, that that she surprised me by breaking free and saving the day. And that moment also to me was very interesting, because I would, instead of I can see how, like, I almost feel like her kind of coming over to David's side would have been the easy way out, like, for her. And I would almost like better to see her grow into my previous statement of what the bitch of the pack really could be.
Yes.
Her growing into a leadership role and seeing how her and David's relationship deals with that. Because he's back now. But even if he still wants to leave, the potential that I see in their relationship could very well, like, I think it would be incredibly interesting to watch her break away from that previous dream and forge a new one for herself, of saying, like, no, like, I'm not a rug to walk upon. I am going to lead this pack. I am going to do this thing. And I think that could be really, if they took her in that direction, I would just be really tickled, because that had just that one moment, man. You saw her rageful and protective, and that gave me more intrigue for her character than anything else in that episode at all, period. I also thought the music could have left a lot to be desired in her scenes with David, because I felt like I was watching a soap opera, and that kind of toned that down for me a little bit, because there was like like, what is happening now? But yeah, that was the redeeming part of that episode for me, and it would be nice if they explored it, because that was the one thing that surprised me in the episode, and that's kind of how I've been judging TV lately. I'm like, can you surprise me? Can you do something different than what I expect you to do, which is the tropey, cliched, annoying thing?
Yeah, and they did. I mean, there is room there for these things to happen, and hopefully they will do those things instead of the tropey,
annoying, cliched things.
Yeah, make the girl just a piney sort of limp rag, and
one be the Abaddon, like the David's sister. I wanted to like her character, because you could tell that she had a lot going on. But I also, again, the trope of the femme fatale, I'm tired of it. Like, do something more interesting. Like, there's so many other things you can do with the character when you introduce them than...
Yeah,
like,
but
I'm tired of the Cersei character, the femme fatale, manipulative bitch character. Like, I'm tired of that. I've seen so much of it, and it's like, part of me is like, okay, give them a chance to show you more about what she is, but that's just a fallback of introducing characters so often, and I know I'm coming down really hard on them, but it's just...
But I can still see that they could take her character in a completely different way. I mean, right now they have her set up as that, but the look on her eyes, she looked scared at the end when she's hugging David. She looked scared.
I thought she looked furious. I didn't see fear there. I saw fury. I saw I saw anger, and I mean, part of me is also, and this is also coming out of the Game of Thrones stuff this week, so. But I'm just sick of them introducing characters that way. I'm so sick of the first image we see of women being manipulative or bitchy or limp raggy, or I'm just like falling into very set tropes, and part of me has gotten to the point where I almost don't care what they do after that, because it's a quickly approaching like a hard line for me, and it's weird because it seems very strange to feel that way, and I can't really escape that sense of just like show me something new from the get-go. Like, please,
Right.
Like
Don't work me up to it.
Yeah. Her on Battlestar Galactica, she's sprawled out, legs open, playing cards. Like that right there is a different image. That's something we don't usually see from women, and I really am. I think like. I'm tired of having to wait and see. That's what it is. I'm tired of having to wait and see and be like, okay, are you going to surprise me later? Because you didn't surprise me now. So that's I think what I know. I'm ranting a lot about this, but with the whole Game of Thrones thing this week, is just like way too often it just unfolds exactly how I expect it to, and I just sit there and want to throw up my hands and just be like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah, you're set up to already see it that way, but I'm just hoping that the other shifter, the one who died,
Sal?
he was saying something in the scene in the train station about like the bloodlines shouldn't be crossed and we have to keep the families separate or there's going to be fallout, there's going to be war and stuff. And I have a feeling that the 5 families are really sort of precariously dancing around each other, holding the city's infrastructure together. They said they own the cops. They are, they are really running the city.
Yeah.
I have a feeling that's just a very, Jenga tower with most of the pieces removed, and they're all just holding together. And I have a feeling that this, even though the killer didn't succeed in blindly thrusting them into a war, I have a feeling that they all know that their situation is unsteady, and that's why, to me, at the end, I interpreted her look as worry or not. I mean, she projected outward happiness, but and then when she hugged him, she had that look in her eyes, like. And some of it was probably anger, like, oh no, all this work I've done is going to go to waste because he's back and he's going to know what's going on and he's going to try and manipulate the situation or whatever. But, I have a feeling that there's a lot more going on under the surface that we will learn about in the future. And I don't know, I'll probably watch at least a few episodes. And if it doesn't pan out the way I'm hoping it does, then no, I'm not going to torture myself about it.
I'll probably watch at least the next couple just to see sort of where it goes. But my thought with pilots is that you really have a delicate window to capture your audience, and the Supernatural pilot captured me. Like, that original pilot was a fantastic pilot. Like, the Sleepy Hollow pilot was another one that I didn't have high expectations for, and it just blew me out of the water. And so, I mean, for me, I feel like you gotta hook people early, and you have to show them something compelling, and that's what I felt was lacking in that, because in my head, I was just kind of ticking off familiar stories when I was watching Bloodlines. Like, okay, Mafia, check. Okay, Romeo and Juliet, star-crossed lovers from warring families, check. Like, just sort of going through that, and maybe that's unfair, but it felt...
Yeah.
I think that's where it felt a little forced to me, because it was so many things that I'd already seen before kind of pushed together.
Yeah.
So,
it's like, how many of Supernatural's mythologies can we squish into one episode? And then, oh my gosh, it pisses me off that shapeshifters don't have to shed their skin anymore. They can just kind of bloop between. Every shapeshifter we see in the show has had to at least shed skin.
Yep.
Where's the gloopy goo?
Yeah, and that was one thing that made them interesting, because they were messy. Like, it wasn't like I mean, this new kind of switch in mythology, it makes it way too, I don't know, way too clean romantic vamp. I don't know, like the Vampire Diaries, I like that show a lot, but it's the very romanticized shapeshifters and werewolves and stuff like that. Yeah, the werewolves, like, it hurts them a lot, but
Right.
they're not that gross. And the shapeshifters on Supernatural used to have some ick factor to them, in that they had this really, really powerful ability, and are some of the most powerful. That character, or that race or whatever, has given the Winchesters a run for their money on so many occasions, because they are so hard to catch. Like, I mean, they have almost died coming up against them multiple times, and really almost died. Like, actual stakes worry, are these things going to succeed? They can look like anyone.
Yeah.
And to see that kind of stripped away too, I felt like we got a boiled down version of them, or not, or like a diluted version of them.
Yeah, I know they kind of retconned werewolves last year into, like, oh, the closer you are to the alpha, the more powerful you are, and you can shift outside of the moon, and you can, you don't have to live on human hearts, you can live on animal heart, whatever it was that they did forbidden. Then maybe these are just a different strain, or like they did with the Jinn strain that got Charlie last season, in Pac-Man Fever.
Yeah.
It's like, well, maybe, oh yeah, they feed off anger. They're like a subset of Jinn. Maybe these are a subset of shapeshifters that aren't gloopy. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's just, wow. Let's rewrite all of our creatures to fit our plot devices that we need.
Yeah, it can be gloopy because it doesn't fit the plot, or it doesn't fit our CGI budget.
Yeah, well, we need to switch him back and forth a lot, so.
Yeah, exactly, and I thought that I thought that too, because I know, like, in the early seasons of Buffy, they didn't dust that many vamps on screen because it cost them so much money. Like, the first season of Buffy, like, it just was so expensive for them to show a vampire turning to dust on screen that they didn't do it very often, and I see how they would, it could be difficult to base a show where a main character is a shapeshifter along something that would be expensive from a visual effects point of view, with, like, whether it's practical effects or CGI. But also, it kind of, like I said, diluted the raw power of that type of being, I guess, for me. So
yeah.
I felt it was lacking a lot, which is kind of sad, because I went into it cautiously optimistic and came out sort of meh and blah.
All of these monsters that have always been fearsome and have had to live these careful lives in hiding almost for 9 seasons of Supernatural, and now all of a sudden they're almost living as humans, in Chicago of all places. Like, nobody's kind of noticed them, they're just there. And
yeah, they are living as humans. I mean, they're out in the world, like, people know their family names, like that. That also was another kind of, like, really thing for me.
Yeah, and they have never heard of the Winchesters, and the Winchesters have never heard of them. It's just kind of like, really? I mean, what happened when Dean went to Chicago during the apocalypse to meet death? It's like the 5 families that run the place kind of didn't pick up on it.
They had that big of a player in town? Yeah. Because they've clearly been there for a while. I had some continuity and suspension of disbelief issues with that as well. Like, it didn't. I feel like it wasn't enough thought put into it in general. Like, and that's sad, because I'm sure there was a lot of thought put into it, but I think it could have used some peer review. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, I mean, we'll see. I'll give it another couple episodes, but what makes Supernatural for me? I mean, like, my favorite show on air right now is its attention to the complexity of human interaction. And And even when they do make monsters human, like in that one episode, did you ever find the title? The werewolf one?
Bitten.
Oh, it's called Bitten. Okay.
Yeah.
Bitten.
8-4. Yeah.
Yeah, like that. That episode was exactly just that. To me, that episode is a nearly perfect episode of television. Like, it is episodic. It can stand alone. Like, if I were to suggest an episode of Supernatural for someone to just watch, that would be one of them. And it is exactly that human sense of something's happening to me. This is kind of exciting, and I can do new things. But oh shit! Like, there's also something else happening, and I'm scared, and I just hurt someone, and I'm afraid of hurting more people, and my friend thinks it's cool because he's been in my shadow all this time, and you know, like that. There were just so many levels of different human things going on there.
Yeah. And just getting to watch Sam and Dean from an outsider's point of view is just...
Yeah, that's always fun, too, with the... Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Yeah. So that's what I love about Supernatural, and I think for me, Bloodlines descended into melodrama. That's what it was. That was kind of, if I had to put my finger on one thing, was that it descended into predictable melodrama.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't get the sense of stakes, really. I was like, oh, war, okay. Like, it just didn't, I didn't feel the sense of urgency, I guess. It felt kind of melodramatic. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, and the Supernatural pilot had all of that. I mean, there was the urgency, you know, Dad's missing, you know, he wants monsters, and wink, wink, you know, he's been gone for a while, and...
Yeah, you had that sense of depth between the characters, of interplay that, like, it didn't feel like they were meeting for the first time on screen, you know, like, it felt like these are brothers. You knew it from moment one.
Mm-hmm.
You knew it. You could see other things happening between them, even the first time you saw them together. You're like, I mean, and part of it is that Jensen and Jared just play so well off of each other, and always have, that makes that show just fantastic, the chemistry that they have. But also, yeah, like you said, I mean, Dad's on a hunting trip, and he hasn't been home in a few days. Like that. Yeah.
There's so much more behind those words.
Yeah, you knew that meant there was something else happening. And it was that level of depth that I felt was missing from Bloodlines. And it could have had that, but I just, like I said, I think they're just too many things, too many familiar stories crammed into something to make it feel way too familiar and melodramatic from the get-go for me. Just the Romeo and Juliet thing, and the, like, boring mob families thing, and even, you know, in Chicago, which is just, like, that was what I'd honestly give it, like, a D+.
Oh.
Which is sad, and I feel really bad saying that. I didn't like it.
Yeah. Well, hopefully it'll improve, and if it doesn't, then hopefully it'll die quickly.
Yeah, I really hope it will improve. And I'm tired of hope. Yeah, that's still, you know, what I've said before. I'm tired of hoping things will improve. Like, I'd like to see new and innovative things just sort of hit the ground running.
Yeah. Yeah.
Be like, this is, and, you know, that's how I felt with True Detective, watching that. Like, that was a show that hit the ground running for me. First episode, I was like, give me more. You know, like, it had a lot of, I mean, there were some kind of tropey, annoying things with that show, but it also it set such a compelling stage in its very first episode, and I want to see more of that from other shows as well, from new things that happen. Sleepy Hollow did the same thing. It hit the ground running, and yeah, so. And
then just started running faster and faster and faster.
Oh man, did I love that show. I'm so excited it's coming back. So.
Oh yeah, they couldn't have left it how it was, because, oh my gosh, cliffhanger.
I know, Abby! Ah!
Oh well.
But Well, we're right about. We should probably wrap it up. So next week, up until the finale, we've got an episode a week, right?
Yep, 3 more.
Cool. So, oh my gosh, 3 more.
3 more.
Ah.
I know. I saw the preview for next week's, and I'm just like,
Yeah, there was some uck in that, if I remember correctly.
yeah.
First
Cass talking to Gudrill. The line that got me was Cass saying to Gudrill, "You've been deceived." And you're like, "Oh my god."
Oh,
Hopefully.
yeah, poor Gudrill. Like, and I do kind of feel like, oh, poor baby, because like everyone just lies to him.
Yeah, and he's been locked up in prison since the Garden of Eden, and he's like so unfamiliar with humanity, and he's just being suckered in by Metatron at every turn. It just sucks for him.
He is just like clay. Everyone just like molds him, and poor guy, always making the wrong choices.
Sounds a little bit like Cass in the past, so hey.
Yeah. So we'll see. Yeah. All right. Well, we will see everyone next week. Sorry for the rant fest tonight. I think we started out with some serious raves. I mean, Alex, Annie, Alexis, Anne was a fantastic episode, if a mouthful to say.
Yeah.
So, yep, we will see you all soon. And hey, yeah, Mittens and I will be at DCCon she'll be there all weekend. I'm just going to crash karaoke, but I'm
going down tomorrow actually. So.
Yeah, so we will see next week. I'm sure we'll have some giggles and we'll have met in person.
Yes! Woo-haw!
And yeah, we'll see you then. Bye.
Bye-bye.